Hey, welcome to another episode of the North State Rocks podcast. Really excited about today's episode. We're talking about bioenergy plants, specifically Hat Creek Bioenergy, which is a 3 megawatt project located here on our property. We're basically the landlords. The project was built out by West Biofuels. We have a really well-rounded group talking about what's so special about having this project here in our local community. Please enjoy.
Welcome to the North State Rocks podcast. Discover the hidden gems and extraordinary people of California's North State region. Join Perry Thompson, CEO of Hat Creek Construction and Materials, as he explores the vibrant communities and interesting neighbors that make our region a great place to live, work, and play. Tune in, be inspired, and rediscover the North State. This is your community. This is your story.
Welcome to the North State Rocks podcast. Excited to have everybody listening today. Really excited about today's episode. We're talking to three heavy hitters in kind of the biomass, bioenergy world. And we have two people with West Biofuels. We have Matt Summers and Mackenzie Castrita. And we also have Matt Hart on, who is with Momentum, which is a key grant funding group that was really instrumental in helping, kind of in a different role at the time, but Matt was super helpful in getting the grant funding to really get this project off the ground. And the project we're talking about today, or at least we're going to start talking about today, is the Hat Creek Bioenergy Project, which is here at the Hat Creek construction site. So full disclosure, I'm basically just, our role here is just as landlord for Hat Creek Construction. So I'm excited to talk about plant is actually operational. Really excited about that. That's exciting. I know it was a long road to get here. I want to say it's the very first one in the state of California on 100% forest fuel. Is that correct, Mackenzie? Right?
Yep, that's correct.
And then it's the second one that West Biofuels did. The first one was kind of in the Central Valley. Can you tell us about that one, if you can, real quick?
Yeah, that first one in Central Valley, like you said, is agricultural biomass. So they use rice hulls. And so the second one at Hat Creek Bioenergy is focused on forest fuel. Yeah,
amazing. Yeah, it's funny. Todd Sloat, he's not on the call today, but Todd Sloat was kind of the one that got me involved in this project from, kind of day one. And the thing that first of all, I don't know anything very little about forestry and certainly bioenergy plants don't know anything about that, but we're excited to participate from the level of really kind of local impacts, local jobs, fire reduction, waste wood into energy, which are all things that, that's the things that excite me for our local community. And that's certainly why we got involved. So Mackenzie, who is West Biofuels? Why are they building plants? Why up here?
Yeah, absolutely. West Biofuels was founded back in 2007. We've been out here in Woodland. It's our main office, I think since 2009. And our main focus is converting what people would consider waste into something of value. So we can convert different types of biomass into biofuels, mixed alcohols, sustainable aviation fuel, renewable natural gas. And the one we've been able to commercialize is turning it into power, into electricity. And so that's what we've been able to do at Hat Creek Bioenergy. We convert forest biomass into electricity. The type of technology we use is pretty unique, mostly seen out in Europe. So we were able to utilize this different technology, put it into work here at Hat Creek, and getting to see a lot of benefits out of it. So one of the main reasons we put plants up in locations like Bernie, these small, rural, kind of more remote communities are more at risk for wildfire threat. And so one of the really interesting parts of this, the fuel that we use, the biomass we use, is we partner with RCDs like Fall River Resource Conservation District, Fire Safe Councils, and different organizations that help mitigate wildfire risk through forest thinnings and forest clearings. And so we utilize that fuel as our biomass feedstock that feeds the plant. So it's kind of a two-part. We're getting electricity for the community while also using the biomass that's helping mitigate wildfire risk.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I know quite a bit about at least the initial stuff on this. And I want to say, correct me if I'm wrong, but is it Senate Bill 1122 kind of the impetus for, the idea about these small community scale bioenergy plants. So, I mean, I think people need to understand that these plants actually on the site, when you look at it, it's quite large, but in as far as power output and what people are kind of used to, the older bioenergy plants here in town, I want to say are like 10 megawatt. And then the other one is a 25 megawatt. This is a 3 megawatt. And then, so can you kind of talk about why this one is only 3, and then kind of what Senate Bill 1122, kind of what it was and how it got this off the ground?
Absolutely. So yeah, Senate Bill 1120, you got it right. That is the big driver. I think it was in 2012 that California passed the goal to procure 250 megawatts of community scale bioenergy. And this was particularly in response to some years that we had back-to-back serious fires around the state that were driving the legislature to help address ways to keep the forests more healthy and more resilient. And there are 3 different categories, understanding that forest fuels and ag fuels and urban fuels are all sourced differently, priced differently, so they need different solutions. So this program was designed specifically for community scale work. And Perry, I know you said you're just the landlord now, but I want to take a second just to thank you for your vision in helping drive this forward. I think you're a great example of somebody who understands the needs of the community, how this type of an economic driver can support the regional health, both from an ecological standpoint and an economic standpoint. These are relatively new technologies that were pushed forward with new programs by the state to do this. And you were somebody who was a big champion in the region to get this moving forward, to take the bet on a new technology and figure out how do we support this? So I want to give you your call out from those early days. Wouldn't have happened without you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, for us, it's such a no-brainer, right? I mean, we've seen, most recently it was a Dixie Fire, 1 million acres. I mean, 1 million acres. Camp Fire, the devastating loss of lives in that fire. And then to be able to go, like, my son is in the mastication business, right? So he's directly involved in forest health, does an amazing job with his company. But, the challenge with his is where does the money come from, right? And yes, you can go out and you can mulch and reduce these ladder fuels, these real small diameter brush and small diameter trees that are just basically igniters to the big fires that really start burning the big trees in the forest and become almost, unable to stop. Dixie Fire is a good example. They could not stop that fire basically until it ran out of fuel. But the cost to that is you go out and you mulch and you masticate, and who's coming up with the money? What I love about this program, yes, it is subsidized, but only a little. And because it is making power, and that's something that people really need. We're using it to run the computers that we're doing the podcast with today. Everybody needs power. And I love that they're figuring out some sort of a solution that is solving multiple problems, right? So reducing fire risk. I mean, I think everybody can get behind that. That's a no-brainer. We've got to spend more time keeping these forests healthy. What we've been doing for the last 20 years is not working. And that is, not just basically letting the forest just completely become overgrown and with zero management. That we have learned does not work. So some sort of management so now we need jobs. So the part about where we live up here near Bernie, California, which is where I'm doing the podcast right now. It's where the plant is located. There's no jobs. I mean, the jobs are, you started with the mill in town used to employ, a few hundred people. The biggest mill that we have in town. Fortunately, thank God, we still have that mill. But like all advancing technology, things are automated. So it is, less jobs there. But I think the biggest factor is, that mill is running off of purely private ground. It's virtually no federal lands and state lands that are being actively managed anymore. So SPI owns the land. And they're taking care of their land, but it's not taking care of nearly as much. I think they do a small percentage of their stuff comes from maybe state and federal lands, but the massive lion's share comes from their own properties. So, we had spotted owl. I'm old enough to know the spotted owl absolutely decimated the logging industry in this area. And it just really hasn't recovered. And these rural communities that I love so much, and so many great kids and great families still live in this areas, but when the kids graduate from high school, what kind of job opportunities do we have to offer them? And that's what gets me most excited about having these community scale, like, Mackenzie talked about. They're located in these rural communities and they're not massive plants. So you can have multiple plants in the North State potentially. And so with that segue, I think, we were talking earlier offline, Mackenzie, if you could kind of talk a little bit about some of the, first of all, congratulations, West Biofuels. I think you guys are the only ones. There were multiple companies that were all trying to take advantage of Senate Bill 1122, right? But the reality is yes, the price is pretty decent, but you still have to figure out how to get the private money to go get the thing built. You've got to figure out some grant money to get the thing built, because on its own, it's not going to probably very difficult to sustain without the grant money. And you guys have two of them, and they're the only company that's gotten two, and you have others planned. So I want to say congratulations for being a California-based company, right? Because usually the companies that are succeeding, it seems like, are moving out of California. So it's awesome to see a company based in California winning. So tell us a little bit about kind of that process, getting these ones, how big of a deal that is, because I think it's a huge deal. I'm really proud of you guys. And then kind of where you see the next 5 years going for your company.
Yeah, well, thanks, Perry. It's a huge win, not only for us at West Biofuels, but I think just in the bioenergy industry, just to see that these projects are possible. So yeah, it takes a long time. Earlier, we were talking about the groundbreaking ceremony happening in April 2023. Now it's April 2026, and we're almost at a full year of commissioning. We went into commercial operations officially on June 30th, 2025, and then got to celebrate with a ribbon cutting ceremony back in October 25. So it's been a whirlwind the last couple of years, but like you said, there takes a lot of efforts and multiple aspects to get the funding off the ground. That's just all of the preparation and pre-development before these projects actually even break ground. And like we said earlier, Matt Hart was a big part of that through Momentum, getting different state and federal funding grant opportunities to help support this. So we have funding with CAL FIRE with a transportation subsidy, being able to get the fuel from the forest floor to the current project site, and that was for operations. But for pre-development and just kind of getting the project started was a grant coming from California Energy Commission through the Fall River RCD. So that helped the kind of project get off the ground. We also had funding from USDA and US Forest Service. So there's been multiple partners to really support these types of projects. And as we look forward, Matt Summers, our COO, and myself have been working really hard to get different biomat projects in before the biomat program sunsetted in December 2025. And we have a few in the pipeline, which we're really excited about. We have one down in Mariposa. We've been working with the Mariposa Biomass Project, and they're a nonprofit down there, and working with the Mariposa RCD. They have an extensive amount of biomass that needs to be utilized. One thing we were just talking about, how you can get funding for these, different forest workers or forest industries. A lot of the time they have funding to potentially do the clearing, but they don't have any place to take it. So that second half is, are they taking it down a hill to a landfill and having to pay dumping fees? Or are they going to have to, just do small biomass fires as well, just to mitigate their cost of taking it somewhere else? So having a location in rural areas really helps benefit those fuel workers as well. And so that one project in Mariposa, we're also looking at another project out in Grass Valley, working with the city of Grass Valley, because they are really concerned with their biomass and fuel surplus. And so they want to partner to make sure that they help protect their constituents in their area. The third is out in Quincy, which we're really excited about, partnered with Plumas County, Plumas Corps. They just have excessive amount of biomass as well. They're actually right next to another SPI mill, but as you said, the difference is having private lands versus additional public lands. So a lot of these areas are surrounded by extensive public lands that don't have any location to bring that biomass to. So having these projects kind of specifically located in those areas really helps benefit that community. And even, I know there's some other grants out there that say, if you're looking for biomass utilization or being able to take out that fuel from the forest floor, they need to have a designated location that it's going to make sure that the funding isn't wasted. So having those located is really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So Mariposa, Grass Valley, Quincy, I think was there another one that you guys were talking about?
Yeah, there's another one up in the northeast area out in Bieber, and one more out in Marysville, actually, as well.
Amazing.
Those are all going to be forest biomass, which are, like we said, very needed in those areas. But we have one more out in Biggs that we've been looking at too, that could potentially be agricultural. So that would be category 2 out of the biomat program. Would potentially be rice hulls in addition to woody biomass from like orchards, wood wastes.
So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. So these 4, so Mariposa, Grass Valley, Quincy, and then the Northeast Bieber area one, would they all be eligible for SB 1120?
So we got all of the projects other than Bieber into the biomat program before it ended. Okay. And so we were able to get all of those contracted, or they're in the process of getting contracted, but those are all applied for under SB 1122.
Amazing. So for Bieber, that if something happens there, and I know you guys are kind of in the early stages of that, but do you anticipate legislature extending some sort of something to continue that funding mechanism? Because, the great thing, right? So I think a lot of people don't realize, and I think, Matt, I'd love for you to talk about this, but how many projects receive grant funding that go nowhere? And that not because people are just pissing money away. Really, people don't understand how hard it is and what a massive lift it is to get a $26 million project funded, built, online, all the bugs out of it, permitted. I listened to poor Matt Summers, who's kind of off the call here temporarily, but listen to him talk about just pulling his hair out with Shasta County, which, Shasta County has its challenges with permitting, but I will say in the state of California, it's definitely not the worst county to have to work with on permitting. So just, can you, Matt, give people kind of an understanding of the incredible amount of levers that have to be pulled successfully to take a project from Quincy, for example, to fruition, so they get a little better understanding of that, please?
Absolutely. And I'll add to what Mackenzie said for all of our funders out here who help support this one. I think the state treasurer's office as well came through with some tax credits for the program. Amazing. As well.
Yeah.
Which is one of the programs that has been really consistently around and supporting these types of projects for years and years. But Perry, to your point, a lot of agencies across the state do put in money, whether that's tax-based money, whether it's greenhouse gas reduction fund money, whether it's ratepayer money, to support the development of these new projects. When we started the project at Hat Creek, as you mentioned, there wasn't one of these before, which means there was no permitting agency for Shasta to go call and say, hey, you've done this before. Can we talk this through? They don't have the foundational understanding of that project. When you look at the private sector and they're thinking, okay, how are we going to put $20+ million into a project? They want to see where's some operational history. Where can I go to see that this has worked out? And how do they think through their risk as investors? Getting first projects up is really important to moving an industry and a sector forward. So as you said, there are certainly times where grant funding has gone to support projects that haven't ultimately made it through to commercial success at one point or another. And that's not a failure of the granting agency. That is not necessarily even a failure of the project development team who are going forward with these projects with the best intentions there. But sometimes new technologies, for some reason or another, just don't work. They don't work out. And that's a really important part of the way the state considers investing its funds in bioenergy and in other technologies to push things forward, knowing that not everything will make it. But as they are able to build the coalitions here who do get some of these over the finish line, especially as we look forward into what's going to happen after the biomat program. And for those listening who haven't spent all their time thinking about this, SB 1122 is the legislation that then created the biomat program, which is the program that is run by the utilities in collaboration with the California Public Utilities Commission to actually offer the rates. And as McKinsey mentioned, that program is currently over. It ended in December in 2025. I don't think all the 250 megawatts were allocated across the three sectors. So we're at a little bit of a crossroads from a state perspective of where do we go next. It's always a challenge. These smaller biomass plants are more expensive from a per kilowatt hour basis than a solar facility or wind, but they're running 24/7, providing base load power, providing greater reliability. They are supporting forest health. Watershed health is becoming increasingly important as part of a driver for making sure that we're conserving our forested lands in California. I know California Northeast has a lot of hydro assets as well that rely on healthy watersheds and forest fires and can really do some damage to watersheds. So as a state, we're still looking for different ways to help promote a healthy public-private sector partnership to drive this economy forward. I don't think we quite know where it is. I'll give a plug to the Bioenergy Association of California, which is a member organization that I know Momentum, myself, and the West Biofuels teams are members of, as are many who are thinking about developing these projects. It's a really great resource for anybody who does want to effectively track the legislation, the funding, the direction. That the executive director, Julia Levin, is really great at bringing that to the members. So for anyone wanting to learn more, it's a great resource.
Yeah. Well, so McKinsey, tell us a little bit about, was this project, how hard on a scale of 1 to 10 was it to get across the finish line?
That's a fun question. I wouldn't even know how to answer, but I think it's out of multiple aspects, financially, and then on technology and operations. Our operations team was already kind of commissioning the plant early 2025, but partnering with different utilities, including PG&E, but just even other equipment vendors. It was tough, but being able to say we were officially in commercial operations on June 30th was a huge feat. So I'd say it wasn't that hard. It was like a nice.
You were such a liar. Oh my God, you're such a liar.
No big deal.
I thought you were going to say 1 out of 10. I thought you were going to say 12. It was going to be a 12.
It was probably, I think my operators and our Brandon up there would probably say it was up there. And then on a financial aspect and kind of development, it took years to get this project going. And I'd be remiss not to include our private investors, Peter Paul and Mieko Willoughby. They really, their belief in the technology and our team, they really got us over the finish line. So we had multiple players. So I think this will be our hardest one, 10, 12, as you said. And I think now that we know what to expect on the permitting side, on the financial side, and even on the technology side, I think these next ones will be easier. Knock on wood.
Yeah. And I want to go in with that optimism there, because as mentioned earlier, we've been through the permitting side. So the next sites, the next folks doing it will have a resource to go to that they can talk to and see how another agency did permitting. And from a financial standpoint, in 3 months, you'll have a full year of commercial operations to be able to show investors, which is just a major milestone in getting over some of the risk challenges that these investors are looking at as they're thinking about how to spend and invest their funds.
Sure.
So I think the interconnection side is always going to be challenging. It's just not always that easy to figure out through working with the utilities, how to interconnect, how to manage the cost of interconnections. I think that's a really big challenge that a lot of people face. But permitting, financing timelines, I think are going to be a lot easier moving forward. Can't make any promises about interconnection.
Yeah. Well, as a business owner, that we're always talking about, whether it's a new technology that we're employing, a new estimating system that we're employing. I mean, the one constant in business is change. But one of our things that we talk about all the time is don't reinvent the wheel, right? So you guys literally invented the wheel on this thing. And so what you're talking about is what we talk about all the time. Don't be the people that invent the wheel. Be the people that get the existing wheel and perfect a few things and make it work. Take a proven system before you integrate it into the business. Take a proven system and tweak it a little is, a million times easier than start from scratch. So yeah, I think we can't emphasize that enough, that you have proof of concept now, right? And then the other thing I think that McKinsey touched on that I think we need to kind of throw a big shout out to is Peter Paul. risking so much personal money. Yes, he's a wealthy guy, but wealthy guys don't stay wealthy guys by risking things thoroughly. And he really, I was really impressed with him. I got to meet him, spend a lot of time with him early on in the process. And what I loved is this is a guy that, quote unquote, has made it and doesn't need to be taking risk. He doesn't. So what's in it for him? And the answer is, he wants a better California and he wants a better North State without him risking a sizable amount of money because again, all those things you just talked about, Matt, you don't have proof of concept yet. So institutional investors are like, well, show me proof that you guys can run for a year without massive breakdowns of this thing, falling apart and PG&E being pissed because now you made a commitment that you're going to give them this power. They've committed to pay you for this power, but there's also penalties for not performing that a lot of people don't really understand. There's a lot of risk when you put a power plant online. You sign that contract with PG&E that you're going to provide the power. It's not just, we feel like taking Wednesday off, so we're going to shut the power plant down. It just doesn't work that way. Your outages your maintenance has to be scheduled way in advance, has to be coordinated with PG&E. There's just so much to it. And so thank God for Peter. And, I'm sure you said another private investor. I'm not familiar with that one, Mackenzie. So can you touch on that for us?
Yeah, Nyeka Willoughby, she actually is the co-founder and kind of co-owner now of West Biofuels. And so she helped us, I think, get across the finish line, with Peter and their partnership. It really was a team effort. And we're just really so grateful for both of them. Like you said, extensive amount of risk, but just an extensive amount of belief in our team and the technology. And like you said, just the mindset of this industry and forest health and all of that. They really have been our biggest supporters. So we're really grateful for them both.
So talking about this technology, can you argue that it's cleaner? Is it similar? I certainly know that you guys, I have some understanding of the ones that are in town, the 10 megawatt that's no longer running and the 25 megawatt that's still running. They're using a lot of water. And I just kind of want, if you could contrast the technology here, what you're using today and why it's better if it's better.
The particular reason we selected the technology we're using is because of the low emissions, but also the fact that it doesn't use water, doesn't produce wastewater. It's all a closed loop process. So what we're doing is avoiding things like ponds or blowdown or these types of things that you would typically have with a steam system. Basically, we're heating thermal oil and then we're using that thermal oil in a closed loop process called the organic Rankine cycle. And what that does is it just continually runs this organic fluid all closed loop and runs our generator that way. So we're not having cooling towers or those types of things which come with some of the older technology. On top of that, we have some, state-of-the-art emission controls. So really good control of how the plant processes the wood and converts it into thermal energy. And then we have treatment technologies that reduce the pollutants substantially. So we use a little bit different technology than you'd see with the older biomass plants in that respect. Again, another key reason we use the technology we use is just it's very, very automated. So the system itself is doing a lot of the controls. And so that enables us to build these smaller plants. We don't have to a boiler operator or some of the other positions that you'd have to have with more of the traditional biomass plant. So for all those reasons, this model, the style of plant has worked really well where it's been implemented in Europe. There's several of these plants up in British Columbia, parts of Canada. There's a really good, kind of first of its type plant out in Maine that was put in a few years ago. But for 10 megawatts and smaller, this technology really works well and has a very, very small environmental footprint from the respect that, we don't have to deal with any waste streams.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, and I think that's a message that really needs to be out there, is that, it's significantly better, especially emission wise, right? We're all worried about that, but especially the water. Here we are so blessed with just some of the most pristine water on the planet. We have it in abundance in the groundwater below us. We have Bernie Falls right next to us. There's just tremendous, incredible water supply here. So I love that we're not really having to mess with that and leverage that and worry about leaching ponds and, all the things that in my mind are pretty high risk, for environmentally. And so, that's incredible. So I know when we were talking early on, Matt, a couple of years, we were just talking about the groundbreaking was 3 years ago in 12 days, which is amazing. But so I guess it was before that, a lot about biochar. And then I know the technology was pivoting potentially. Are you guys creating biochar, or are you not creating biochar at the site right now?
We are transitioning into producing biochar. We can set up the plant to basically operate as like a carbonizer / gasifier. We've run it that way to do test runs. Right now we're waiting for our certification of the biochar. So one of its value items is its carbon sequestration capability. So to do that, we have to sort of demonstrate the carbon footprint of the biomass, of the biochar that we produce at the plant. So we're going to transition from ash as being our byproduct to biochar here in the next months.
Well, that's exciting.
And that'll be great. A lot of that will get used in, farming operations that are also up here in the North State too. So pretty exciting to be able to do that, to be able to demonstrate sequestered carbon and generate some carbon credits also for the plant. So it helps us with it's just another revenue stream and another way, another sort of green stamp on the plant that we can also deliver some climate benefits to what we're doing too.
So Matt, explain to me, I'm a fifth grader, because that's not much smarter than that. So explain to me, I'm a fifth grader. I just want to make sure that people understand I think we're making the assumption that people understand what the plant is taking in, but why don't we just really clarify that and really so they understand. And then quantity. So we talked pretty extensively about it being a 3 megawatt plant. It's part of the Senate Bill 1122, how that kind of came to fruition. But if you could really say, for example, how many bone dry tons a year the plant is going to burn, and then what does that product look like? And then also contrast. I think most people understand what ash is, as what kind of the existing plants here in town do now, but the special component of biochar and kind of what that is for the layman person that doesn't understand this industry.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So our projects, we bring in basically forest thinning. So they're when our partner timber operators are out doing thinning projects for the Forest Service, they're generating these piles of material it's not timber quality material. It's snags, it's brush, it's all kinds of things. And what they'll do is, instead of just leaving that and leaving the fire hazard of that, they'll chip it up, put it in, these big trucks that folks see around on the roads, the big chip vans, bring it into us, and then we put it in our feedstock pile. And that feedstock pile can have anywhere up to 7 weeks worth of material at any given time. So that material sits there, and we kind of go first in, first out. So the material that comes in, is going to probably sit there for that 4 to 6 weeks and then get used in the plant. So we kind of cycle it through that way. So material goes up into the plant, and then it goes across a thing that's called a reciprocating grate. And when we produce biochar, we operate that with almost no oxygen or very little oxygen. So basically we have that material heating, drying, and then it gives off this nice combustible gas. The gas that makes flames in your fireplace comes out of the wood, and then we use that gas, which we can clean burn to produce our heat for running our generator system. What's left on that grate is that material slowly moves its way down the grate. And what gets left there is basically like the cellular structure of the wood. If you could look at it with a microscope, that's made of this really nice carbon that it doesn't want to turn into fuel. It wants to stay in that little cellular structure. So that falls off the end of our grate, and then we collect that, which it will have that ash in there that would have been there if we completely burned the biomass. But it'll have this beautiful carbon structure that's good, which is just an excellent soil amendment. So that biochar comes off the end of the grate, and what makes it great is it's got these properties where it holds water, it holds nutrients. It basically is a great way of building up soils, and that carbon will last in that soil for 100 years or more. So it really stays fixed in the soil, and it provides basically a lot of service for the soil, which is, it holds on to water. So it kind of acts like an absorbent. It can hold on to, like fertilizer or nutrients, like nitrogen type nutrients, and helps build the kind of the root zone of the plant. It's a really nice horticultural product to build up soil, and it delivers that sort of long-term sequestration of the carbon. So the plant absorbed the carbon, the tree did, and then we're lengthening the amount of time that carbon stays in the environment by turning it into biochar. So that's kind of what we do on the feedstock end. And then that biochar comes off the end, and we run it up a conveyor and directly into a truck. And we take it away by a truckload, and that can be used directly by farmers or even like horticulture operations. It could go directly to a Home Depot and to a consumer too. But at this point, we're looking at using it in the Fall River Valley agriculture, as a soil amendment. Now, ash can be used as a soil amendment too, but biochar is special in the fact that it has all this sort of water and nutrient holding properties, whereas the ash, also has benefits. It has potassium in it and other things that the soil need. But the biochar also has this active carbon, kind of like activated carbon. A lot of people are familiar with that. It's essentially like an activated carbon for the soil, and it just has a lot of great benefits.
Okay. So that's a great explanation. I think you went over the top of the 5th grade, so I barely hung on to that, but
okay.
But good job trying to dumb it down for us. That was great. So what do we have going into the plant in wood chips? Is that 30,000-ish bone dry tons roughly? Sound about right? Okay.
About 30,000 tons.
On a yearly basis.
On a yearly basis.
Clarify that. Yep.
So, rough numbers about, 1.2 tons makes a megawatt hour. So we're running, probably like 3.5 tons, bone dry tons an hour is what the plant runs at. And out of that, we might produce, 1,000 pounds an hour of biochar. So it's substantially reduced in volume and mass by the time it comes out.
Yeah. Excellent.
Most of it goes into the energy production. Portion comes out as biochar.
Well, I love that the byproduct is such a high use product. That I'm excited for you guys to kind of, again, we were talking before, when you were off there, just the challenges with being the first one, right? And you get just incredible that this is the first forestry plant running. And now you guys kind of created the wheel. Now people can kind of copy the wheel, including you guys, on here's what worked, to prove to institutional investors that, proof of concept and, yes, we are making the power. And now the same thing is going to happen with biochar. You guys are kind of basically the lead on, hey, this is a byproduct. I know biochar has been around, but the consistent ability to make it on demand. I love that you guys can kind of switch back and forth as need be, as you're kind of proving out you need the customers, right? You need proof of concept. You need people to try it, and you need people to go, wow, we're able to hold moisture so much better. We're able to inoculate it with whatever the type of fertilizer that we're trying to really target, and it holds it so much better, and the crop yields are this much better because that's all the data that you guys are really trying to produce right now. So it's really, really exciting that this hits. And we've talked about the jobs to build it, the jobs here, the guys that are working at the plant, but even more importantly are the guys out in the forests that are, have a place, those jobs are created and then we have a place to take these ladder fuels, create healthy forests. And now you create power, which is something that we all need. And it's such a great use. And now you're being able to take even the waste product and really add value. So I love how this project is just adding value over and over and over again in so many ways. It's just awesome to see.
Cool.
Awesome
Yeah,
to see.
we're excited. We're excited about it. I think the chance to kind of replicate this in other parts of the North State was a great opportunity. We feed right into, I don't know if Mackenzie mentioned, but we feed right into the distribution circuit. So, our power really is being used right in Bernie. We are helping reduce the amount of transmission that needs to come to that substation because we're always taking a base load 3 megawatts of load that comes right from the Bernie community. So all of that helps with the transmission system and all of that as well. So a lot of nice benefits for a small community.
And Perry, just for those who are trying to figure out what does 30,000 tons mean, I think the plant, correct me if I'm wrong here, Mackenzie or Matt, it's something on the order of like 3 to 4 truckloads of fuels a day is about how much the plant goes through.
5, we usually say 5 or 6 because bone dry tons. Yeah, bone dry tons, we get at like about 14 or 15 tons a truckload.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That was always the visual useful for me. Clearly, I didn't remember the conversion factor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally.
Yeah. And that 6 to 7 week supply you're saying that you're always trying to have ahead of you. We've had a really mild winter. So I think if we ever have a real winter, you guys better make sure you have more than 6 or 7 weeks stockpiled up in the fall because we've had some winters where you do not get out in the woods very effectively in the winters.
Yeah, you're totally right. No, we can do like 3 or 4 months and that's probably what we'll do next year. Maybe we got a little lucky in our first year.
Hey, it's better to be lucky than good. I say that all the time.
That's right.
Always take luck over skill any day. Yeah, that's amazing. Okay. So, all right. Yeah, we talked a little bit, Matt, when you were offline, kind of about the Mariposa, Grass Valley, Quincy, and then even that northeastern Bieber area one, which are all exciting because they're all forestry based, which is incredible. If, I know there was a heavy lift. We talked about really, really challenging getting the first forestry run across the finish line. How far along are you on these other projects? Is this like just really, really early on? We're, 5 years out? Are we 2 years out? What are we kind of thinking, and kind of see what is that vision over the next 5 to 10 years that your company is hoping to accomplish?
Yeah. So we've got pretty good news on that front for 5 of our next project sites. We've already got draft power purchase agreements for them.
Nice.
Now that doesn't mean we're going to go build them tomorrow because we got to put together the finance package. There's still some other types of permitting, but we focused on getting those utility agreements in place. So as soon as those project sites finish their interconnection studies, we basically have a 3-year period to build them. And we expect those studies to come back this year. So we're going to be on a pretty heavy build schedule for these new project sites. We really, to make our company go too. I mean, I have a staff there in Woodland that goes and helps service all these plants, but we need to have multiple to kind of keep that staff going as well. So our vision is really to get probably the next 3 to 5 plants online in the next 3 years, 3.5 years. So,
excellent.
So we're ready to replicate this model. I think the first one was so hard, and because you were there from the beginning with us, because it was new, we had to convince investors, we had to convince banks. The project was studied to death. We've had like 3 or 4 different independent engineering reports on the project. But now that we have 6 months of data with more than 90% capacity factor, so our uptime is just incredible for a plant that just opened, and good revenue stream, everything like that. So I think we've now kind of shown the financial entities that we can do it. And what we want to do now is get a loan to do 3 projects at a time instead of 1 loan to do 1 project, because it's basically a similar effort. So our concept is to have a kind of a hub and spoke model where we've got our, kind of our engineer staff in Woodland, the various plants, in the Sierras and the Cascades, and that we're keeping going, and then same with like purchasing fuel, then you can have one dedicated professional purchasing fuel for all 5 projects or what have you, right? So we really, want to see this model of the smaller plant work, and the way it needs to work is to have multiple facilities going. So we're on that slope for those. The good news is that, we do have power purchase agreements coming for those other project sites, and then it'll just be off to the races to get everything built. And we're going to build them very similar to Hat Creek.
Yeah.
Not a lot of engineering changes too. So that helps as well, because that took a lot of time the first time as well.
Yeah. So I imagine you're going to benefit from speed, right? Because you have a proof of concept, it worked. And I know there has been incredible inflationary pressures over the last 3 or 4 years that I'm sure made things super challenging for meeting budgets and all of that. Do you anticipate that the plants that you're going to be building, these plants can be built less expensively because of what you've learned? Or is it just, the cost is kind of what the cost is at this point?
Yeah, no, we've definitely learned how to reduce costs, but as we do that, inflation is raising the prices.
Inflation goes up. Yeah.
So I mean, there's only so much we can do with the amount of copper that goes into the plant, in terms of, both generator and motors and all the wires and that type of thing. And, if anybody knows the price of that stuff, it's more than doubled. So whatever we do in efficiency kind of is getting it up. So we're kind of staying somewhat stable on the price to build the plant, even though we've reduced the inputs to do it. But that's, and we'll continue to do that. We'll continue to learn more about operating the plant efficiently and that type of thing. But, the fortunate thing is I don't think we've seen our price increase, but we haven't seen it go down, mostly because every construction efficiency that we make gets eaten up by the fact that construction materials have gone up by an equivalent amount is kind of what's going on. So the good thing is we're not going backwards, at least.
Yeah.
We're holding that price, which is what we need to do.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's great. Okay. Well, I'm trying to think is there anything that we haven't covered that you guys want to cover? I'm just kind of looking at my notes here, making sure that I didn't.
Perry, when I think about
out.
Some of the folks that are thinking about doing this as the landlord and site host and partner who has this at your land, and you run another business out of it, would love to hear what the experience has been like for you having this site as a neighbor.
Yeah. So it's been really, really easy to get along with we're in a business that has tremendous truck traffic, right? So, we're used to a big day of trucks is, 100 loads, 150 loads, 200 loads. And so, when you're talking about wood chips coming in here, that's probably, I would say, if you're talking about impacts, that's probably the most noticeable impact would be chip trucks. And again, it's like 4 or 5 a day. It's not anything, excessive there. It's nice having another set of eyes here on the property for, for safety and for, we do have a very secure site. We have a night watchman here on site and that kind of stuff, but it's still nice to have 24-hour a day presence, on the site. I think it adds to the safety and, just have another set of eyes out here. And really it's not noisy. It's really a quiet plant. That's one of the things that, I was really impressed with. And then as far as visual impacts, in the morning, you might see, when it's cold, you see a kind of a steam plume that's pretty minor compared to what I'm used to. Or even our asphalt plants are significantly more of a plume than this plant. And it's pretty much only on cold mornings, when you're seeing that steam. Really, it's not. So the impacts have been virtually non-existent, and we're just super excited to have such a positive community impact on our site. I mean, that I'm really proud of the fact that it's here. I love that it's here. I love that there's jobs for this community. I mean, all the things that we've already talked about, and I kind of hammered those pretty good when Matt was offline, but it's just awesome to see. And I'm really excited that you guys have these other projects in the pipeline. really excited to kind of keep tabs on moving those along. Yeah, from my perspective, it's been nothing but a net add to everything that we do here, Matt.
That's great to hear. Yeah. Yeah. I think, being there on your site, has been great. You guys did a great job supporting us on getting the site graded, having a backup system for fire and all of that kind of stuff already on site. So that part's been good. And the fact that you already had a scale on site. So we've build a good relationship there with you guys doing all the scaling in and scaling out of the chip vans. So it's been pretty cool, and it's been great to bring people from Sacramento and Redding and elsewhere to see like look, this really can be done. And so you got a beautiful location up there to bring people to and kind of show everything off, Perry. So that's been awesome.
Yeah. Well, I'm really proud of you guys for getting this thing done. There's been, we talked earlier about, projects like this are hard to get off the ground. They're hard to get going. And I'm just really impressed that you guys got it done, and then super excited that you have, 4 or 5 more in the pipeline right now. To me, that's the most exciting thing, that the proof of concept is doing exactly what, when people fund grants, this is what they hope for. They hope that you guys will work out the kinks, figure out the inevitable challenges that come with being first, right? And so I know this is the second plant, but the first forestry related plant. And I think up here in these rural communities, we're a heck of a lot more excited about mitigating fire danger is a huge benefit to these plants. And the more, in my mind, that we can be responsibly sourcing and communities that have the needs. And, we were talking earlier, Matt Summers, we were talking earlier about how SPI does amazing things on their private land, right? They manage their private land. The problem is nobody's effectively managing the federal and state lands. And so when we're talking about being excited about these smaller community-based plants, it's an opportunity for feedstock. I'm a pilot, so I fly over the North State all the time. And, you talk about the treetops, that when there is logging, the treetops don't go anywhere, the limbs don't go anywhere, the brush can't go anywhere. You're giving everybody a place to go. But what people aren't talking about is the massive amount of really small diameter wood that, say a fire comes through, woof, and I fly over. There are thousands of huge piles of small diameter timber that are lost in the fire, but aren't big enough to be utilized for lumber production. And so those are just basically sitting out in the forest rotting is kind of what's happening right now. And, people don't think about it, but you need a place for that really small, if you're even thinning, when you're thinning properly, you need a place to take that really small diameter tree, because you're trying to protect the larger, healthier trees. Right. And, that's what we're all love about the forests in these regions. But in order to manage them properly, you have to have a place to take this stuff. And so the fact that you guys have 5 more of these in the pipeline, good for you. God bless you guys. I'm just so thrilled that we got to be a little part of number 1. I think it's freaking awesome. So thank you guys.
Thanks.
Really cool.